What do you do, Ray?
I work for people like you.
What do you do for people like me?
I'm the guy you call when things go wrong.
When someone brings you into their problem, you're discreet. Whatever the fee is, I'll pay it.
The things people in this town demand. Unbelievable.
My father knows a lot of powerful people, and he can be dangerous when someone doesn't give him what he wants.
You want to tell me what happened? Your brother and your father were hospitalized. Your 19-year-old daughter called the police. You gonna answer my question?
What'd you do?
Ray's not here.
It's not Ray that I'm looking for.
You know, I ran a check on you,
Mari knows I was in prison. That's history.
but I bet you didn't tell her about this.
Happy anniversary, baby. He attacked me, Ray. Can you help me?
She's just a kid.
When you look at her, is she just a kid?
Natalie James walking off the set of a $3 billion franchise? That's a fucking problem.
We gotta talk.
Find the thing you love the most and let it kill you.
I'll take care of it.
We are at the Barclays Center for what promises to be a terrific night of boxing on Showtime, and we're here to talk about tonight's big event and live stream 2 very good preliminary bouts as well. Big night here in Brooklyn, and hello again, everybody. I'm Barry Tompkins with my Showtime partner Steve Farhood and the once and future middleweight champion of the world, Danny Jacobs. Great main event tonight on Showtime, and let me remind you before we really get started here, even if you are not a Showtime subscriber, all you have to do to watch tonight's boxing on Showtime is go to Showtime.com for a free trial. So it costs you absolutely nothing to watch a great event from here at the Barclays Center. So let's talk about the main event on Showtime. Adrien Broner and Mikey Garcia. And I'll address this to Steve first. It isn't very often that you get a fight where we as broadcasters go into the fight saying, I really don't know who's going to win this fight. And that's what we got tonight.
Yeah, and the odds, Barry, you know, follow the money in boxing, right? The odds indicate exactly what you said because Adrien Broner opened up as a 5-1 underdog. And all the money has been bet on Broner, bringing the odds down to almost 2-1. So clearly this is close to a pick'em fight. And what's refreshing for me, Daniel, is that there's no title at stake. You know, you don't always need a title at stake to make a good fight. This is kind of a throwback to the old days. And the stakes are absolutely huge, even though there's not a title on the line.
I mean, I believe the fans are going to get their money's worth regardless. This is one of those fights that's going to be a barn burner, you know, title fight or not. You know, I'm excited to be here for this fight because it's going to be, you know, something fans are going to get their money worth.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're going to have a chance to talk about this fight quite a lot, but we've got a couple of fights to talk about right here. And the first one features a lady that I know you're going to be seeing a lot of, and you have seen her already, Katie Taylor, arguably one of the best female fighters around.
There's been a renaissance for female boxing. Katie Taylor from Ireland. She's already a superstar in Ireland. 2012 Olympic gold medalist. She's going to be leading the way along with Claressa Shields and a couple of the other women as women's boxing becomes more and more exposed to television audiences.
No, it's going to be huge for her. This is a great opportunity for her, given the following that she has. I mean, this is great. With Claressa and both these women, they're campaigning for a bigger and broader women's boxing. This is the first step.
Jasmine Clarkson will be the other half of this matchup. One thing about Jasmine, she has never been stopped. So Katie Taylor, very tough. Jasmine Clarkson, never been stopped. A real test, needless to say, for both these women, particularly so for Katie Taylor, trying to impress in her first fight here in the United States. We seem like we're just about ready for the introduction of the fighter, so let's go to the center of the ring and the ring announcer, Dave Diamante. Dave?
Of the evening, presented by Premier Boxing Champions, brought to you by Mayweather Promotions, DeBella Entertainment, TGB Promotions, and Showtime in association with Matchroom Boxing. Sponsored by Corona, La Cerveza Más Fina. Introducing your 3 judges scoring this contest from ringside: John Basili, Robert Perez, and John Stewart. At the sound of the bell, your third person in the ring will be Charlie Fitch. And now, ladies and gentlemen, 8 rounds of boxing scheduled in the lightweight division. Introducing first, fighting out of the red corner, she wears the white trunks. She weighed in at 133.6 pounds. Her professional record, 4 victories against 8 defeats from Cedar Hills, Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jasmine, Miss Red Clarkson. And her opponent across the ring, fighting out of the blue corner. She wears black with gold trim. She weighed in at a ready 134.6 pounds. Her professional record, a perfect one. 5 fights, 5 victories, 3 of them coming by way of knockout. From Bray, County Wicklow, Ireland, the 2012 Olympic gold medalist, ladies and gentlemen, Katie Taylor.
Boxer, 2 seconds. Good evening, fighters. You both know the rules. Protect yourself at all times and make this a clean fight. Touch gloves now. Come up fighting at the bell.
So we're set to go with the first of 2 fights streaming here tonight from here at the Barclays Center. Our second fight, Big Baby Jarrell Miller and Gerald Washington, 2 heavyweights in a very pivotal fight. Meantime, Katie Taylor, undefeated in 5 fights, 3 of those coming by way of knockout, an Olympic champion, former world amateur champion, 5-time world amateur champion. First appearance here in the United States.
What you'll see right away from Katie Taylor, she's very comfortable in the ring, very quick, good movement, good hand speed, punches and combination. She's a very well-schooled fighter.
Saw a good combination right there, a straight right hand lead and then a left behind her.
She has the fundamentals down pat. You can see her stance, and she has a strong presence. She's letting her hands go early on.
You know, the other thing about her, she's a very good athlete. She was a world-class soccer player until just a few years ago, as a matter of fact, and probably could have made a living as a soccer player.
So she's a tremendous athlete. I'm loving what I'm seeing from her, the finesse, the movements, the head. You know, this is things that, you know, you really don't expect, but when you see it, you appreciate it.
You know,
quick hands, too.
And Daniel, if you walk into a gym and somebody's in the ring sparring, it doesn't take you long to realize whether that person can fight or not. If you haven't seen Katie, right away, what do you say?
You would never know. You know, and that's my point. So for me, seeing this is awesome. I mean, I haven't really got a chance to see her as an amateur, but I've heard so many things about her, and, you know, she's living up to that right now.
And when you talk to her, we all talked to her yesterday, when you talk to her, if you put 50 women in a room and said, pick out the boxer,
right,
I would take her 49th. Just ahead of Brooklyn Decker, maybe.
She's backing Clarkson up. You see Clarkson's a southpaw. Shouldn't be a problem for Katie Taylor because her last opponent was a southpaw, and all that amateur experience, of course, she fought many southpaws. Don't forget 2-minute rounds for the women.
Very effective first round so far for Katie Taylor. Nice combinations. Came with an uppercut in the middle of that. I'd say that was a pretty effective first round.
Yeah, very accurate punching.
Yeah, I can agree with that. success.
Jasmine Clarkson, we are familiar with the Clarkson family, of course, because her brother, Samuel Clarkson, has been on our Showbox series a number of times.
Yeah, three appearances there. He's won a couple. And Katie Taylor, interesting. She won the gold medal in 2012, which was the first year there was women's boxing in the Olympics, albeit only 3 divisions, as we look at action from round 1. But in 2016, she fought again in the Olympics, and she lost in the first round to a woman from Finland. And I said to her in our fighter meetings, you guys were there, does it still bother you? She says, I haven't gotten over it yet.
Yeah.
Daniel, you can relate. You know, you only have 1 loss as a pro.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, maybe you never get over it, but she has a little bit of a chip on her shoulder, and I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. It's the competitive spirit that she has.
So this is round 2 of this 8-round fight. Again, a straight right-hand lead. Big combination of punches from Taylor, and Clarkson slipped in a right hand.
Yeah, Clarkson's been, you know, she's been getting hit with a little bit more than expected, but she's tough. And in a fighter's meeting, that was one of her claims to fame. She said, hey, listen, you know, even if I lose, I'm not going to go down or I'm not going to get stopped.
She is getting hit, I will say that. Again, a good right hand.
Well, she fought her way out there. Landed a couple of shots. Trouble is, she's taking 6 for every 1 she lands.
Yeah.
Not only has she never been stopped in 8 losses, never been down.
Lives in Texas, and she just has trouble getting fights.
Yeah,
took advantage of this one. Probably, I'm sure, her biggest payday.
Yeah, she took this on short notice, and she said, hey, I was ready for this opportunity. But it seems as if she's a little overwhelmed in these first 2 rounds.
We asked her yesterday, you think you'll be nervous? She said, of course.
Yeah.
This is a big stage. And think about Katie Taylor, who has fought before 90,000 people at Wembley Stadium, and the Olympics. It's a little, they've been in different places, these 2 women. Let's
she's
put it
not
that
going to
way.
be awed, Katie
No.
Taylor. I thought it was interesting. She talked to us, there's another good right hand. She talked to us about when she started out fighting. She started because her brothers were fighters, and she used to go to the gym and try to get fights against the guys, and the guys wouldn't fight her because she was a girl. So she started leaving the house wearing headgear so that nobody would know she was a girl when she got to the ring. This is round 2 of an 8-round fight. Again, that quick right hand from Katie Taylor. We're just getting started on this long night of boxing. It culminates on Showtime, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. A terrific doubleheader as Jamal Charlo will defend his title against Sebastian Halen, a tough guy from Spain. And then, of course, the main event, we touched upon it earlier. We will talk a little bit more about it before we get out of Dodge here. And that is Adrien Broner and Mikey Garcia in what they're calling an elimination bout. But it's a big fight. It just goes to show you, there doesn't have to be a belt at stake for it to be a major event.
Exactly right, and there's been a lot of interest in this main event tonight, and again, it's because of the stakes. You know, Broner just can't afford a loss, Daniel. He just can't at this point in his career.
And we want to remind you that you can watch that on Showtime, the big fight tonight, and you don't have to already be a Showtime subscriber. Just go to Showtime.com, take advantage of a free trial opportunity, and it should be a terrific card. And I believe I said Halen was from Spain, and I apologize, from Argentina, of course, a great legacy of fighters from Argentina. This is round 3.
For sheer volume, Katie Taylor, through 2 rounds, connects with 42 punches to 4 for Clarkson.
And you know one thing I love about Taylor is that she's throwing punches and bunches, but they're not flurries. They're sharp, polished punches that have an effect.
Absolutely, and she gives you a different look every time. She started this series just a moment ago, left hand of the body, then came upstairs. She's gone with a right hand lead very effectively to start a rally.
I think she might have touched every part of the body this fight.
You can see she's backing Clarkson up now, and I think the only thing I would recommend when she gets Clarkson against the ropes, bang that body a little bit more. She has a great left hook to the body, and that may weaken Clarkson, and she may get that stoppage that she wants. Remember, Clarkson's never been stopped.
Clarkson again extricates herself from that corner. I'd say I'm really impressed with Katie Taylor. She's really sharp and very professional.
And now she has completely no fear of an attack back. She's doing whatever she wants at will. Her hands are down. She's moving. She's finessing. She's glowing right now, Barry.
Yeah, I mean, she only had 5 professional fights, remember. That's a pretty good right hand to the body, almost double Clarkson up. And again, right to the body, left to the head. Right to the body, left to the head again. She is wearing Clarkson down. Another good left hand.
Great round.
Very impressive so far, Steve.
Well, she's overwhelming an inferior opponent, that's for sure. It's a showcase. It's only her 6th pro fight, Katie Taylor, but they're waving this fight off, Barry.
Wisely so, I think. She was starting to get beat up, Clarkson, and she was game, but I got to think they're doing the right thing here.
Yeah, I believe it was only a matter of time before she took more punishment, and she wasn't going to win the decision the way things were going, so I think it was just best they stopped it.
Yeah, it's just too much for, as you pointed out, Steve, just an overmatched opponent. But let's take nothing away from Katie Taylor.
Yeah.
She did everything she needed to do here.
You just saw her polish and her ring maturity. You know, for a fighter who's only had 5 pro fights, clearly she knows what she's doing. Her plan is to fight for a world title at 135 pounds within maybe 6 months.
Yeah, and of course that is the case with women's boxing. You're going to get championship fights sooner than you would under normal circumstances as a guy, certainly.
Well, she has a huge following, and she was an amateur sensation. And as a pro, she's developing very well. And I can see why she has all the backing that she has, because she's truly a phenomenal athlete.
Yeah, hugely popular in Ireland, even though she's never fought in Ireland.
Exactly. I'm waiting for that moment. Well, you know, since she turned pro, she's been based in Connecticut.
Yes, lives in Vernon, Connecticut.
And that's why this says we see the end of the fight here, or at least the end of round 3. That's why this fight was so important to her, because she really is anxious to leave a great impression with the American audiences, and I think she did that. We showed highlights of one of her fights previously on Showtime, but this is the first live appearance on streaming here, and she was utterly dominant, and we can only expect more from her as the level of opposition obviously will increase.
Sure.
I don't think there's any question about it, and very polished for someone who, of course, she had a long amateur career, a very successful amateur career, but I think very, very polished.
I mean, these are world-class champion moves that she's doing. And like you can just tell with her amateur experience that it's been able to carry on. She's phenomenal.
Yeah, classy-looking combinations. The woman she's aiming for, there's a woman from Belgium named Delphine Persoon, who's number 2 pound for pound, according to the Ring magazine, among the women. She has a great record. That's the ultimate test for Katie Taylor, assuming she continues to win.
Well, you know, and that's the other thing, too. It's very tough for a talented woman like Katie Taylor to get fights.
Yeah.
There's just not that much that's at her level out there.
And as an example of that, in this fight, Clarkson actually had a higher purse, got paid more money than Katie Taylor did, because Clarkson took the fight on short notice. And it's very difficult. Nobody wants to fight Katie Taylor. Her people told us that they went through over 20 opponents.
Those are some of the things that, you know, the fans really don't understand, and when you're a good athlete, when you're a good fighter early on in your career. So.
And there's the official announcement. A stoppage at the end of the 3rd round. Katie Taylor runs her record with 6-0, but more importantly, makes a great impression in her first bout here in the United States. No question, we are going to see a lot more of Katie Taylor. Let's talk for a moment about women's boxing in general. It's on an uptick, to be sure, and it's people like Katie Taylor that are making it that way. They're very good fights.
Yeah. I think it's fantastic. I've always been a fan of women's boxing, and sounding like self-serving, but nonetheless, it's true. Showtime has been at the forefront because we've had Amanda Serrano on. I'm sure Daniel's good friends with Amanda because she's a New Yorker, and we've had Clarissa Shields on Showbox. We'll have her again next Friday. So I'm a fan. I've always been a fan, and I love the fact that the 2-minute rounds seem to spur the women on to fight a little harder because they can throw punches for 2 minutes. 3 minutes might be more of a challenge.
Yeah, you're right. And it's starting to be more competitive fights, and I think that's a real key, too. I think one of the things that has held women's boxing back a little bit is you have one fighter who's extremely talented and another fighter who just can't come up to that, and as a result, you get lopsided fights.
No, I agree, but I think we're at a point now where women's boxing is at all-time high, and with the people that we just mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Claressa Shields, so I think she is going to be the one, including these young ladies here, that are going to take boxing to the next level, and they're going to get their just due.
And Steve pointed this out just a moment ago. We're going to be in Detroit next week. Claressa Shields, at a very young age, at least boxing-wise, gets to fight for a championship for the very first time, and we're going to be there for it. And if you want to know a little bit about Claressa Shields, take a look.
The harder a girl fights me, the harder I'll fight back. I have the technique. I have the power. Right hand feels good. I want everybody to see me fight, and I want everybody to say, yes, she can box. Like, she's the best female fighter that I've ever seen.
That's the rest of it. Yep, that's the rest.
So that is on Showtime coming up next Friday night, August the 4th. Let's take a look at what we're going to be watching a little bit later on Showtime. And remember, you can see it even if you're not a Showtime subscriber. Adrien Broner and Mikey Garcia in the main event. Jermall Charlo and Sebastian Halen to open things. Two very good fights, but we didn't get a real chance to talk about Broner and Garcia to a great extent. What do you see happening in this fight? They talk about styles make fights. If that's really true, these two styles, frankly, might not make for a very exciting fight.
Well, I think these two are at their peak in their careers right now, and they both have something to prove. I think they're going to put their best foot forward. I think we're going to see two totally different fighters. They're both going to bring it. I don't think there's going to be a showcase from Adrien Broner. I don't think there's going to be a Mikey. Well, we normally used to seeing Mikey Garcia 100%, but I think both guys are going to bring their all. I do think that we're going to see something that we're probably not going to be used to come tonight.
It's interesting, though, that both fighters, historically at least, have been counterpunchers. Now, hey, Danny's saying he thinks they'll both bring it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes intensity alone can make for a good fight. And I'm going to use an example I think Daniel may remember. This fight with a guy named Quillen that Daniel fought. And we weren't sure how that fight was going to be fought. Yeah. But there was a lot of intensity from the very first round. Of course, Daniel took care of business in one round. That was a shocking result to everybody, maybe a little bit to you too, in how quick it was. So the intensity with Broner and Garcia might make for a really good fight. And the stakes, because neither guy can afford to lose. I mean, Broner, let's face it, he's in great shape. And he's focused. Yeah. And there have always been excuses with Broner when he hasn't fought well. Well, there's no excuse this time. He has to win this fight, or maybe he becomes a very high-level trial horse.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up a point. We talk about being in fighter meetings, and you've been on both sides of the fence. You've been in a fighter meeting, obviously, as a fighter, and you've been in a fighter meeting as a broadcaster. And oftentimes, we always say you can look into a fighter's eyes in those meetings and have a pretty good idea of who's going to show up on fight night. So what did you see to that end in Adrien Broner?
I've seen the dedicated Adrien Broner. I've seen the fire that we've seen in the young Adrien Broner coming up. He made weight. He looked like he was in shape. I mean, leading up to this fight, I've been keeping contact with those guys, and his camp has been excellent. You know, so I'm looking forward to seeing no excuses. I'm looking forward to seeing a very professional and focused Adrien Broner. And I know Mikey Garcia is going to be exactly what he has been, 100% at each time out.
Yeah, you made that point. He is 100% every time you see him.
Yeah, exactly. He's consistent, and that's Broner has not been consistent. Right. And the people who like Garcia in this fight, that's why they like Garcia, because he's consistent and he has a very high ring IQ. But let's not forget one factor that gets overlooked a lot. Broner is the naturally bigger guy. Yeah. You can't just keep moving up in weight and expect it to be the same fighter. Garcia started out as a 126-pounder, won world titles, 126, 130, 135. Now it's 140. He's never fought this high, where Broner has fought much higher than 140. So that could be a factor as well.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, and yet, when we talked to Garcia yesterday, he was talking about, well, you know, even if I get by this fight, where is there to go in the 140-pound division? I could go to 147. Yeah. So he's talking about not only fighting at 140, he's talking about fighting at 147 if he feels he can carry it.
Well, the good thing about Mikey Garcia is that he's been showing that he's able to carry that power in each weight class that he's been moving up. So
I've got to think that the early part of this fight is going to tell us a real story.
No doubt. Well, for starters, Adrien Broner is a notorious slow starter. In every fight he's had almost, he's fallen behind a couple of rounds. With Paulie Malignaggi, he had to regroup and win in the second half of the fight. He's a very, very slow starter. We saw it with Adrian Granados in his most recent fight. it's a common theme, and I don't think he wants to fall behind against Mikey Garcia, because Mikey having such a high boxing IQ, Mikey's going to adjust during the fight, make adjustments, and probably get better as the fight progresses also.
It'll be kind of a chess match, in my opinion, for both guys. Whoever able to establish their dominance early on, to me, is going to be able to take control of the fight.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think. And we should talk a little bit about the first fight, too. That is Jermall Charlo. And he's a guy I know you're going to be watching with a very interested eye against Sebastian Hale. And this is not a gimme fight for him, but you have to think that the odds would favor Charlo. But first of all, let's talk about that fight, and then tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are about Charlo looking down a road for yourself.
I think Charlo's a great fighter. He's in with a good opponent. I'm pretty sure he'll be victorious tonight. But like I said, I have an invested eye, so I'm going to be watching, because anyone that's in the top in the middleweight division, I'm going to have my eye on. So, hopefully he does well tonight, and we'll see what happens in the near future.
Did you notice he walked out of the fighter meeting when Jermall Charlo was there?
I did notice that. Daniel is old school, and I think that was, hey, imagine a Daniel Jacobs-Jermall Charlo fight. To me, I mean, two young, good-looking, powerful middleweights. Daniel's been a middleweight his entire career. This is new ground for Charlo. He has to show us he can fight at this weight. Now, at 54, he was a really good puncher. We saw it in his last fight with Julian Williams. He was devastating in that. 6 more pounds, is he the same puncher? Though that's the kind of question we want to see answered tonight.
Yeah, and I think, much as we talk about the 140-pound division, Mikey Garcia is saying, well, I don't really know what there is there. The 160-pound division, where you are, there's all kinds of attractive fights.
I'm fortunate to be in this middleweight division right now, because it's stacked with top guys. I mean, we got Charlo guys just coming up. We got all these guys that are performing now at an elite level, and we have so much attention in our division. So for me to be one of the top guys, I believe I'm the best middleweight in the world. It's just exciting. Good time for boxing.
And you're going to be able to see this fight tonight, and I'm sure you're going to be able to see Danny Jacobs down the road as well, maybe against Jermall Charlo, but against a contender certainly for a championship fight. He will be a contender for a championship fight. I want to remind you that you can watch tonight's fight on Showtime. You don't have to already be a subscriber. Just get on Showtime.com. Ask for the free trial. It's there right there for you, and you can watch tonight's card, and it is an outstanding card. Let's talk about what's coming up for us here. You and I have seen a guy with the affectionate name of Big Baby Miller, and that's a literal nickname, I'll tell you that. Big Baby Miller is fighting a guy named Jarrell Washington, and this is a very pivotal fight, not only for Miller, but certainly for Washington as well.
It's a good time to be a heavyweight. It's a good time to be a good heavyweight, a rated heavyweight. And if you look at the list of top American heavyweights, well, it's a pretty short list. There aren't a lot of guys. You have Deontay Wilder, obviously, who has a title. Dominic Brazil, maybe, because he won his last fight. And then there's Big Baby, who's still a prospect, don't get me wrong. But by fighting Gerald Washington today, I think he can take the next step and kind of become a legitimate contender. And that's what this fight is about. It's definitely the toughest test to date for Big Baby.
Sure. I think both guys this is the stiffest competition. Obviously, Washington fighting a guy in Deontay Wilder, being a world-class champion. But he has so much at stake right now, because, he's the guy with the more experience. He's the guy who has that record. But can he hold on to that? Can he fight and keep that legacy? Because if he takes 2 losses back-to-back, it's going to be devastating. He's going to be lost in the wind. As a heavyweight right now, even though there's very few heavyweights out there, it's a kill to be killed sport. And you have to win, and win impressively. And I think Baby, having the momentum that he's having, even though he's been out of the ring for some time, I think he has more of the momentum, and he has that belief in himself too. So we're going to see a show tonight from both guys.
A couple of things about this fight. One is that he comes in at 298 pounds.
I was going to say.
Heavier than we have ever seen him. And he's always had that ability to walk down his opponent. He's been in there with smaller opponents every time we've seen him, certainly, and I'm sure in every fight in his career. He's been able to wear them down, but I'm not sure he can do that with Washington.
Well, style-wise, it's a very interesting fight, because Gerald Washington's going to show a little bit of movement. He's not going to let a 300-pound heavyweight drape himself over him. So he's going to show movement, and it's going to be up to Big Baby to wear him down. Big Baby, even though he's a huge guy, not so much a one-punch puncher, more of a volume puncher. has the biggest legs I've ever seen on a heavyweight. So he's going to have to walk his man down, punch to the body, and take control probably over the second half of the fight. But style-wise, this could be a very difficult fight for Big Baby.
Yeah, and I believe this is going to be the fight to give him the growth and experience that he needs. He's going to have to take his time, pace himself, and not go in there and barrage over the opponents that he's been doing it with. Jarrell Washington has an enormous amount of experience, and he's going to be using everything that he can and more to get the victory. So it's going to be a good fight. I look forward to it.
Washington was talking about the fact that he learned more from his loss to Deontay Wilder than he has in any other fight. I mean, that may be something that you can relate to, too. I was going to mention this about you earlier, that it's interesting that sometimes you get more notoriety and more respect for a fight that you lose than for all those fights that you won. And I think that was the case with you with Triple G.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, people connect with the spirit inside, and I showed that warrior spirit inside that ring, and win, lose, or draw, people considered me a winner because they, you know, they had a connection with me. So, you know, I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about what's all in store for me, because that really wasn't a loss for me, because we have so much to look forward to.
Yeah, that's why I refer to him as the once and future champion, because I really believe that.
Yes, sir.
But that's what Washington is saying about his fight with Wilder, too, that he learned from that fight.
Yeah.
So let's see if he can bring it to the dance.
And you mentioned Vladimir Klitschko. Let me tell you very quickly, to me, this sums up the difference between Gerald Washington and Big Baby Miller. They both sparred with Vladimir Klitschko. Gerald Washington's response to what was it like was, well, I learned a lot. Big Baby's response, and this was about a year ago, was, I beat him up so bad they sent me home. Now, is that true? I kind of doubt it, but whatever the case, those two answers kind of epitomize the difference between a very, very brash Big Baby and a sort of humble Gerald Washington.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's a woofer. He really talks a lot. Gerald Washington, actually at the weigh-in, he kind of turned his back on him, and some people were saying, well, he's scared, he really doesn't want. I don't think it's that at all. I just think he's a guy that doesn't want any part of the trash talk. You can talk all you want, but don't talk to me.
He's a very focused guy. He's going to have to put his game face on tonight because, you know, Big Baby's going to come with the antics. You know, he's a brash talker, and if you let him get inside your head, this game is mostly mental. If you let a guy get inside your head, you know, he can take you and you can pummel. So he's going to have to remain focused in this fight.
He's a New York guy. How'd you ever get away with not being?
Me and him are really good friends. So the personality that you guys are talking about, I know about.
Well, I can't get out of Dodge here without talking about the fight that everybody's talking about, and that is August 26th. Mayweather and McGregor. We all saw the press conferences. Everybody's asking me about it, so let me ask you about it, Danny. What do you make of this fight?
You know, for a boxer, coming from a boxer's perspective, I think it's more of an entertainment show than anything. I think the MMA fighters take this as serious competition because they really give their guy a shot. You know, I'm just happy to see Mayweather step back in the ring. And I look at it as MMA versus boxing. So obviously I'm taking my guy's side to represent and to win on our behalf. But ultimately, it's a great show because both fighters can come together who represent the both individual sport at a major level, come together and have one big clash, and we'll see who is the king of combat sport.
Well, I'm a boxing guy, too, even though I'm not a boxer, and I agree 100% with you. To me, in a subtle way, not that Floyd Mayweather ever feels pressure, but in a subtle way, he is fighting for boxing and for boxers. There's something about boxing, Barry, that the average fan who's sitting at home thinks he can do it. I'll get in the ring with Mike Tyson for $1 million. People say that all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
But no one feels they can hit a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Boxing ability is underrated, and Mayweather is going to show, I think, McGregor and the rest of the world that a professional boxer is a professional boxer.
But P.T. Barnum was right, huh? Nobody ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of the American public. Everybody's going to buy it, and I'm probably one of them.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Well, Gerald Washington is in the ring right now, and Big Baby Miller is going to make him wait. That's part of the gamesmanship that we see in the sport of boxing, even though this is not a title fight. But everybody's here to see Big Baby Miller. He'll be introduced last, and so Gerald Washington is kind of cast in that role of challenger.
And what's interesting about Washington, you know, this is a guy who played defensive end at USC. He was a football player, came relatively late to boxing, but he has tremendous size. And when you add size and reach with mobility, that can be a very difficult assignment for Big Baby, who, at least in most recent fights, has fought smaller guys.
And in boxing, in the heavyweight division especially, one punch can end it all.
Yeah.
So you can be a guy with less experience, but have more power and have that sheer size as Washington has, and can land that one good shot that can end it all.
But the sheer size in this case belongs to Big Baby. 298 pounds, as we've said. We've seen him as low as I recall, in the high 260s.
Well, his trainer told us he'd like to see him at 250. That's a dream.
Yeah, that's one leg.
Just looking at Big Baby's presence alone is very, very intimidating. This guy is one character.
Now, all of that said, he started as a kickboxer. Very athletic guy, even though he's a massive guy.
Yeah.
Kickboxing champion.
He has one of the fastest hands you'll see as a heavyweight.
Yeah.
Definitely. He reminds me a lot of Shannon Briggs. Big guy in size, but hands fast as lightning.
Yeah.
He's got all the goods. So that's our second fight here streaming tonight. Still a full night of boxing coming your way on Showtime. It gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 Pacific. The fighters are in the ring now. Big Baby Jarrell Miller and Gerald Washington. Washington is a Navy veteran also. He went in the Navy after he played football at USC. So as Steve mentioned, he got into boxing a little bit late. Here's the scene here at the Barclays Center as the crowd starts to fill up, waiting for the Showtime main event fighters, and that is Charlo, of course, against Sebastian Halen, and Adrien Broner against Mikey Garcia. We are just about set to go to the center of the ring, and here once more is our ring announcer, Dave Diamante. That's a look at Gerald Washington. Washington does look very calm, and that's a big factor too. He doesn't seem to be awed by the moment. Of course, he was already in a championship fight against Deontay Wilder. Washington, 18, just the one loss to Wilder, 12 knockouts.
Washington, an example of the fact that heavyweights mature later than other fighters, because you see Washington's 35 years old, but he's had only 20 pro fights.
Yeah, I was going to say, not a lot of miles on him. At 29 years of age, Jarrell Miller, as we said, started as a kickboxer, had only one loss as a kickboxer, and then decided he was going to go into boxing. Here's Dave Diamante.
Gentlemen, from Barclays Center here in Brooklyn, New York, we are set to go with our next bout of the evening, presented by Premier Boxing Champions. Brought to you by Mayweather Promotions, DeBella Entertainment, TGB Promotions, and Showtime in association with Salida Promotions and Greg Cohen Promotions. Sponsored by Corona, La Cerveza Más Fina. Introducing your three judges scoring this contest from ringside: Robert Perez, John Portere, and John Stewart. At the sound of the bell, your third man in the ring will be Gary Rosado. And now, ladies and gentlemen, 10 rounds of boxing scheduled in the heavyweight division. Introducing first, fighting out of the red corner, he wears red with white trim. He weighed in at an even 248 pounds. His professional record, 18 victories, only 1 defeat. He has 1 draw and 12 big wins coming by way of knockout. From Vallejo, California, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the gentleman, Jarrell Miller Washington. And his opponent across the ring, fighting out of the blue corner. He wears red with gold trim. He tipped the scales at a ready 298.8 pounds. He is undefeated in his campaign as a professional with a record of 18 victories, no defeats. He has 1 draw and 16 big wins coming by way of knockout. From Brooklyn, New York, the new Kid Dynamite. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jarrell Big Baby
Okay, gentlemen, give you specific detail instruction in the locker room. I'm going to tell you 2 things. Protect yourself at all times. Most importantly, obey my commands at all times. Touch the belt, bang at the belt. God bless.
So with that, we are set to go. Our second fight of the evening streaming here tonight. Big night of boxing at the Barclays Center here in Brooklyn.
And guys, I'll just say this. I have seen one-bedroom apartments in New York City smaller than Big Baby's upper body.
But I got to say this too. You know, you and I, Steve, have seen Big Baby on numerous occasions, and he doesn't look any fatter, if you will, than he has at a lighter weight. He seems to carry 298 reasonably well.
You know, it's always been surprising for me to see him at such a high weight still be able to finesse and move as swiftly as he can. You know, I wonder if he took off maybe just a couple pounds or, you know, got in what people would consider better shape, because I think he's in phenomenal shape, but would he be able to be a little bit better as far as his movement? But boxing is going to be full of criticism. We'll see what he does tonight.
Yeah, and he's coming off a promotional dispute, so he's been inactive. It's one of the reasons he's heavier.
Washington showing a pawing jab early in this fight.
Not a hard fight to analyze. Basically, if Big Baby's in Washington's grill, Big Baby's where he wants to be. If there's a distance between the two, then Washington's where he wants to be, and he can use that jab.
And he's just pawing with that jab, though. He did pop the right hand over the jab.
Washington is making those investments to the body early on. With a big guy like Washington pressing him, he wants to be able to slow him down, so if the later rounds came, he wouldn't be as effective.
And let's not forget, Washington was even on the scorecards against Deontay Wilder when he got caught and knocked out. After 4 rounds, that was an even fight.
So far, Washington having an effective first round. Miller just not doing very much early on.
But if Miller's going to eventually overpower Washington, which is what he's hoping to do, he has to keep walking at him and apply pressure and hope that pressure, both in a physical and a mental sense, wears Washington down.
Right, and that's what we consider effective aggressiveness. We don't want to just apply that aggression and not throwing punches or not be effective. You want to be able to come in and block and counter shots, or, you know, have some momentum, not just pushing the guy by.
Well, so far, that pawing jab of Washington's really not doing much. Miller's just basically walking through it.
And now you see Washington against the ropes and in the corner for the first time. Did he rock him there with that right hand?
Miller keeps coming.
And there is no pushing Big Baby back. Jarrell Washington's best bet is just to move on his feet and use that jab and stick to his game plan.
Clearly Washington's round, but bad sign as the round mounted. He's been against the ropes more and more.
Yes. Yeah, and again, Miller's just able to do what he wants.
You know, guys, I'm big on facial expressions and body language and things of that sort, because I think they tell a deeper tale than what the fans actually see, because the language, the body language from both fighters, I'm really leaning more towards Big Baby, because Washington doesn't really seem to be, from his body presence, taking it well. Even though he had a great first round, the body presence and language from coming from a fighter, I understand that it's not a good thing.
Interesting observation.
Yeah,
and
very
something
good
a fighter would see.
observation. Very good observation. What scares me is, I mean, he is going to get by on his jab, and it's been kind of a pawing jab, and it's just had no effect in keeping Miller off of it. It's not really a sticking jab.
That's the right hand there, where I thought maybe Big Baby was wobbled a little bit, but he did keep coming and kept his hands up.
There you go.
This is round 2.
Show stats tell us in round 1, Washington with a connect advantage of 17 to 12.
Well, at times we have seen Big Baby. He's not been a really quick starter.
I'm looking at these two guys, and Daniel, you've had an amazing career, but I don't think you could relate to being 248 pounds and being outweighed by 50 pounds. It's unbelievable.
You know, these guys are some of the biggest boxers I have ever seen in my life. And to see them move like this is almost as incredible.
Yeah. And you see, again, to echo Daniel's point about body language, Washington spending more and more time against the rope, squared up, too.
And there's a great uppercut, and that buckled the knees of Washington. Washington just playing right into Miller's hand.
Washington had no trouble keeping distance from Wilder because Wilder didn't come to him. It's a big difference here.
He's definitely learning as he goes on in his career. Washington is. This is definitely a new experience for him.
Here he is again, back to the ropes.
Even Amir Mansour, who Washington had a good fight with, didn't do this because Amir Mansour is a very small heavyweight. Miller's a huge heavyweight.
I think Washington's just getting himself in a heap of trouble. Good body work. The left hand missed.
And how important is it for Miller to go to the body because he doesn't want Washington to be able to use the ring and move.
It's so important for him to go to the body right now. And he's making little investments to the body, but, you know, he's such a guy who, when he smells bloods, he wants to go for the knockout. And, you know, he has a really good knockout ratio, but sometimes he needs to make those investments. And I think once he go back and learn these little things as he goes on with his career, he'll be able to apply it. But as we can see, a good body shot here. So, yeah, he's learning these things as he continues to go on. And if he can stay active with this great performance that he's putting on, given the fact he did the victory, I think he'll be great.
Slipped another uppercut in there. It's been a very good weapon for him.
And what I notice about Washington when he's against the ropes, he is totally square. And you can't get much power on your punches when you're square.
There's a right hand from Washington. Had no effect. Right hand from Miller. Backs Washington up. Three-punch combination from Washington. All missed. So do those two. Big round for Miller.
If you go back to the corner and you put your arms up on the ropes like that, does your trainer slap your gloves away?
Yes, he does.
I was going to say.
Because, you know, boxing is all about the mental. It's all about what you show. And if you're showing weakness and putting your arms on the ropes like that, it's showing fatigue. And my trainer, who is a no-nonsense type of guy, you know, he definitely doesn't want me showing any type of weakness. So get them hands down.
And this is why you're seeing fatigue from Washington, because he took a battering in round 2 after a very good first round. But a stationary target is not what you want to be against Big Baby Miller.
Round 3, and you would have to think Washington's going to have to rethink his tactics here.
But one of his problems, he needs to get a little bit of respect here. He's really an arm puncher. For a guy his size, I don't see a lot of power on his punches.
See, that was a pretty clean right hand and did absolutely no damage.
And how effective is it and discouraging is it when you can hit a guy like that and he continues to come?
Yeah.
It's your best shot.
A big uppercut backs Washington into a corner again. Again, a right hand from Washington, but Miller just keeps on coming.
Yeah, when Big Baby just keeps his gloves up as he comes in, he can be hit. But he also bends at the waist a little bit and slips under shots. You see him doing it right now. And you don't expect a 300-pound heavyweight to slip under punches, but he's very mobile.
Very versatile type of guy.
Yeah.
4 shots to the body and then an uppercut from Miller.
And as we see the facial expression of Washington leaving that corner, he's gasping for air.
Yep.
Those investments that Big Baby made to the body seems to be working.
Big Baby's never been down, never been cut. And the only knockdown ever suffered by Washington was against Wilder. Of course, that ended the fight.
And right now, this is kind of a typical Big Baby Miller fight. He'll just wear his opponent down.
It's true, Barry. We called the Fred Cassie fight on Showbox, and Cassie won the first round.
Yes.
And then it was all Miller after that. Well, clearly, Washington's best punch has been the right hand. Sometimes he loops it a little bit, but he's getting it through. Not throwing it enough, though, I guess. And he's not having enough of an effect with it.
Yeah, uppercut has been pretty good for him. And it looks to me, at least it feels like Washington is slowed down. Just missed with that uppercut.
I wouldn't think you want a 300-pound heavyweight leaning all over you. I wouldn't think that would be part of the game plan.
I've seen Big Baby about a month ago in Prospect Park here in Brooklyn, and he came up to me and gave me a bear hug. It almost cracked my whole ribs.
Well, that was George Foreman, right? He leaned on his opponents, wore his opponents out without even throwing a punch.
Yeah, it's a craft that most big men don't know how to use effectively. But if you can use, especially with guys of this size, you know, it's incredible. It could be to a great effect.
And what's scary, Barry, is that today George Foreman would be a small heavyweight.
Isn't that the truth? Yes. Once again, I want to remind you, full night of boxing coming your way on Showtime. We get underway at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 on the left coast. And even if you are not a subscriber to Showtime currently, you can go to Showtime.com and take advantage of a free trial, which, of course, would include tonight's boxing activity and 2 outstanding fights, particularly the main event from here at the Barclays Center. This is round 4. And Big Baby Miller has started to control things.
And I find it interesting, in Big Baby's corner, Aureliano Sosa is the chief second. Harry Kite has been Big Baby's trainer up to this point. Harry Kite's outside the ring, not inside the ring, so seems to be a little change there.
You know, most fighters have a certain guy that they would like to hear in the corner, and then they have, because I know for me, I have certain people in the ring coming to my corner and out the ring that I can hear screaming in, you know, different angles, different effects. So that might be what that is. Both of guys have great relationships.
And back against the ropes. Washington tries to push Miller off him.
That's a thankless task, huh?
Yes, it is. And right back to the ropes he goes. Chopping right hand, and Washington extricates himself. Good left hand from Miller. And that hurt Washington. And a right hand from Miller. Misses a whistling left.
Regardless of how impactful you think those punches are, if Washington's against the ropes and Miller lets go with both hands, sometimes you give the referee no choice but to stop the fight.
So, you know, there's a case where Washington landed about 4 punches and Miller just kept walking.
Big Baby has been off for 11 months, and you can't really tell. It doesn't seem as if he has a lot of ring rust. He's letting his punches go, and he's looking smooth, like an oil car.
And as we look around 4 here, the only question for me at this point, because Big Baby's clearly dominating at this point, is at 298. If he has to, can he do this for 10 rounds?
Right, and that's a really valid question. You know, for me, I know certain fights, especially in the heavyweight division, you know, second part of the fight is the key fight. And if you can stay in shape and if you can endure, then you've won.
They want Washington to walk Miller back, and I think that's just a rumor.
You have to like the diversity of attack from Big Baby. He mixes that uppercut in nicely.
Yes.
The right hand, sometimes it's straight, sometimes it's overhand, depending on the situation.
Yeah, he's very versatile with his attacks.
Washington carrying that left hand dangerously low now.
Yeah, we talk about the stamina of Big Baby, and he seems to be the same guy he was in the first round. But Washington, maybe not so much. So.
Yeah, agreed. I have to say, as we look at a wide shot of the crowd, it's pretty cool having a Brooklyn heavyweight fighting in Brooklyn. Daniel, you've headlined here, but the amount of heavyweights, quality world-class, world championship level heavyweights that have come out of Brooklyn, pretty amazing as we look at action for round 4. But you have Tyson, Briggs, Michael Moorer was born in Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah.
I'm leaving a couple out. Riddick Bowe, of course.
Yeah.
All from Brooklyn, all from pretty much the same neighborhood, right?
Yeah, we have a list of, Hall of Famers. And to have another Brooklyn guy come in here. And I mean, let's just face it, the heavyweight division is the most exciting division in boxing. So to have another guy come represent Brooklyn, New York, in Brooklyn with our new stadium and arena, it's absolutely great.
He had a good look there at just how dominant Big Baby Miller has been, and getting more so. And you saw a little bit of the George Foreman approach in those highlights, too. Hit him anywhere. Hit him on the hands, hit him on the arms, hit him anywhere.
At this point, Washington's mindset is just, hey, every second I survive, I have a little bit better chance of Big Baby just getting tired of hitting me and tired of throwing punches, and maybe I get lucky. The problem with the strategy of taking a fight to the second half of the fight is, what if you don't get to the second half of the fight?
Exactly.
Once you get into that mind frame, you don't necessarily see yourself winning, because if you're survival mode with no offense back, you're just fighting a guy off trying to survive, then it's all downhill from there.
And he is right in that same position that he spent most of that fight, in the corner. Finally manages to get himself out of there, but then just goes right back. Washington is talking to Miller now. I'm not sure what he's saying, except stop, stop. On the other hand, I got the sense that Miller is pushing his punches a little bit more in this round.
Well, that is really the question. Can he carry his hand speed, his combination punching into later rounds when he weighs as much as he does? Remember, this is a career high of 298 and a half.
Yeah.
Only recent heavyweight I can think of who weighed this kind of amount of pounds was Valuev from Russia, who won a world title, but he was 7 feet tall.
Yeah. There's that uppercut again, the right hand over the top.
Nicely set up by Big Baby.
He has those sneaky shots. I mean, his hands are so fast. It's hard for Jarrell Washington to see those uppercuts coming up. But this has been a pretty good round for Jarrell Washington. He's been able to hold his own a little bit the second part of this round.
Another thing I'm thinking of, Gary Rosado hasn't had to break them all that much. With heavyweights, a lot of times you get sloppy fights where they're leaning all over each other. That really hasn't been the case.
Still to come tonight, of course, we've been talking about it on Showtime. Get underway at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 Pacific. 2-fight card, but 2 outstanding fights. Battle for the middleweight championship. Jamal, I beg your pardon, Charlo against Sebastian Halen. out of Argentina, and a tough guy. And then, of course, the main event, it's a pick'em fight, we believe, between Adrien Broner and Mikey Garcia. It all comes your way, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 Pacific. You can watch it, even if you're not a subscriber. All you have to do is get on SHOWTIME.com and look up free trial, and you're there.
And Big Baby is there, right in the grill of Washington. I agree with Daniel. I think that was a better round for Washington, but I don't think he did enough to win it.
I don't either.
Agreed.
So this is round 6.
We talked about Big Baby being more of a volume puncher, heavy-handed, but more of a volume puncher. He's averaging 63 punches a round in this fight, and that's well over the heavyweight average.
Oh, yeah.
And here again, Washington really unloading on Miller. That left hand hurt Miller. And now Washington trying to close the deal. Miller was hurt by the left hand. He shakes his head no, which means I'm hurt. And Miller covering up for the first time. Another good right hand from Washington. Woke the crowd up.
Wow, that was that came out of nowhere, huh?
Yeah.
That flurry.
Washington has hit him his best shots, and Miller just is a machine.
I'd like to see a little bit more head movement from Big Baby.
Now Washington falls into the corner. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, no, I said it seems as if Baby has the turn playing game. You know, now it was his turn to take a little punishment. Now he's going to dish it out. You know, Big Baby plays a lot of mind games, and as he's even getting hit with those shots, he's pushing Jarrell back. He's talking to him. So, you know, this is a very, very interesting fight. It's all Big Baby, in my opinion, right now.
Well, I think so, too. I do think there's a little steam gone from Big Baby, but it may not matter because the hands of Washington keep dropping.
But Daniel is so right. Heavyweights play that game. Your turn, my turn.
Yeah.
And part of the reason they play that game where a middleweight or a welterweight might not is because they can't throw punches for 3 minutes. And Washington's a little punched out now, needs a little breather.
Agreed.
I believe that's a warning for punching low.
Washington trying to get a little life, bouncing around, but looks very tired right now.
And Miller showing a lot more of a jab this round as he comes in. He's doubling up on that jab, too.
Seems as if he found what works for him now.
Yeah. Double jab, right hand of the body. Double jab, right hand of the body. That time Washington walked right into a hard jab. There's that uppercut again. Good right hand there, and a left hand drives Washington into the ropes. Washington another right hand, and another combination from Miller, and Washington still in the corner. Finally holds on at the bell.
He was definitely hurt that round.
Yeah, that bell came just in time.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Steve.
Who do you give that round to is the question, because story of 2 rounds, right?
Yeah.
The first minute and then the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'll slim more with Big Baby on that last round.
Me too.
Me too.
That last barrage was pretty good.
Well, there you are again, Danny. You talk about body language.
Yeah, he's gasping for air. Isn't really looking into his trainer's eyes. I mean, if I'm Big Baby, I'm going to be looking at this guy from across the ring, and I'm going to feel that urgency, that pride, that I conquered you feeling, and I'm going to go out there and try to rip your head off.
That was the early part of the round.
Yeah.
Washington was doing great.
Yeah.
That left hand, I thought, hurt Miller.
Now the doctor's taking an extended look at Washington right now. And when a doctor doctor has an extended look like that, Daniel, I think it sends a message to the referee.
It sends a message to the referee, and it sends a message to the fighter.
Yeah.
You know, both fighters know that that's not good if the doctor comes and checks on you because it shows weakness. And then anytime you show weakness, it's not good.
And Miller continued to work that jab, and it's a very good one. He's snapping ahead of Washington back almost every time.
We saw Washington trapped against the ropes at the very end of the last round. If that happens again and Big Baby opens up with both hands, I think Gary Rosado will stop the fight.
I agree with you. And I wouldn't complain.
No, it's been a pretty dominant performance since the first round.
I'm always a safety first type of guy. You know, even with my Peter Quillen fight, the referee stopped the fight a little early in most fans' opinion, but I'd rather be safe than sorry because this is it's a real brutal sport.
I thought it was the right stoppage.
Yeah.
So here's Big Baby's chance right now. Well, Washington escapes, but if Miller gets the stoppage, the chances are good it'll be with Washington against the ropes, as he is now.
Washington starting to take a lot of punishment here. Almost every shot of Miller's is scoring. There's a good uppercut again. It's just kind of cumulative now.
And that's the kind of fight that fighters get hurt. Cumulative effect, not so much one punch.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
And I know it must be frustrating for Washington's corner because you know they're looking at the glass as being half full, and they're saying, if you could just turn it up, you know, for 30 seconds or 20 seconds. Miller's tired, he's hittable, you can do some damage, but easier said than done when you're as exhausted and you've been pounded.
Another good left hand drove Washington back into the ropes. Now in the center of the ring, double right hand. Washington backs up again. Good body shot. Miller doing all the right things.
Yeah, he's been looking sensational this round. And I love the fact that when he comes forward, he moves his head, too. It's very rare for a heavyweight of that size to come and move his head as swiftly as Big Baby is removing it.
Again, a 3-4-5 punch combination. And finally, Washington ties him up. It would not take much for this fight to be stopped.
And if Washington does make it out of the last 20 seconds here, keep an eye on the corner. Because you're going to have a corner that's concerned, you're going to have doctors that are concerned, and a referee that's concerned.
Well, he got through this round, but let's see what happens. That's the look of a beaten fighter. And it looks as though they may be stopping this fight. Let's see. No, apparently not. You know, Miller has really shown us the whole package, though. I thought good body work, maybe better than I've ever seen from him. Shown the ability to stick a pretty good jab.
I mean, I'm a little biased, obviously, because I know the guy, but I can agree with you. He's really been able to show us a lot. And yeah, the whole what-ifs about, you know, if he lost the weight, but he's looking really good now, and he's doing great now, and I think he's going to get the victory, if not this round.
Yeah, when you see a heavyweight of his size throw as many punches in combination as he does, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So this is round 8. A fight that has been absolutely dominated by Jarrell Miller since the very first round.
Now, Daniel, I'm going to ask you a question because this is interesting to me.
Yeah.
When Big Baby does get hit, it's usually by right hands as he's coming in. Do you think he's getting hit with those punches because he knows Washington can't hurt him, or is it a little defensive sloppiness?
I won't say it's a little defensive sloppiness, even though he does get caught sometimes in those defensive laps. But I do think it's a strategy and it's a tactic, because if you've seen him throughout his whole career, this is his style. He's a pressure type of fighter, and it's the Eddie Chambers effect, in my opinion. Eddie Chambers was such small of a heavyweight that he used to allow guys just to hit him and let themselves kind of tire themselves out and get, frustrated. And as he continued to come forward, I just always thought that was his game plan. So yeah, I can agree.
Which begs the question, when he fights a guy who can hit a little harder than Washington, maybe we'll see a different story. But that's for the future to decide, right?
Absolutely. Well, boxing is a forever going learning lesson, and I think in this fight, if he gets the victory, he has a lot to go back on and look and say, hey, I can do this differently. But even as you climb that ladder, you'll be able to make those adjustments once you get there.
All of that said, considering the layoff, and he's fighting a guy who has had some success, only one loss, and that was in a title fight. Not bad.
Yeah. Well, he's at a point now in this fight, as we pass the halfway mark of round 8, where he knows he could cruise if he wants. But he's still putting on pressure, still throwing in combination. I mean, this fight, assuming he finishes on his feet, is won. He's not going to lose the fight on points.
Well, I think he wants to make a statement. He's been calling out Deontay Wilder and a lot of these other heavyweights, top champion guys. He's been calling these guys out. And Deontay actually fought Washington and stopped him. So I think he wants to make an impression, not only on the fans, but, to the rest of the heavyweight division, that he's here to stay.
And again, Washington against the ropes, not really offering much resistance, hands low. I just don't think it'll take very much for this fight to be stopped.
I'm surprised we're still here, to be honest with you. But I guess there's always the thinking with heavyweights that it only takes one shot. When flyweights are fighting, you don't necessarily think that.
Yeah.
But with heavyweights, because of the history, because of Marciano, Joe Frazier, and George Foreman, and fighters like that who can end fights with one punch, sometimes you hold out for hope when there shouldn't be any.
Well, I don't believe there's much for Washington. Again, an uppercut, a chopping right hand.
Ooh.
And again, a right hand drives him into the ropes and wobbles him at the bell.
And the referee just came in and stopped the fight, guys.
That's it. The fight is over. Well stopped. Well stopped, and Big Baby Jarrell Miller gets another win, remains undefeated, gets another knockout on his record as well, or a stoppage at least. A pretty good test for him.
I mean, hey, listen, guys, he's been off for 11 months, and this wasn't even his longest layoff. So the fact that he can come in and perform like this with a guy who just had a world championship fight, come in, perform like this, look good, and have him quit on the stool is very impressive for me.
I agree, and I think he's made the step from prospect to contender tonight.
Yeah.
In the heavyweight division right now, we got Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, and then a half step below, Joseph Parker from New Zealand. They need guys to fight. They need guys to fight, and Big Baby Miller is not too many steps away, if any step away, from getting a shot at one of those three guys.
Certainly guys are going to look at him now as a viable opponent. And frankly, I think they're going to look at him as a viable opponent who they think they can beat, and they may not be right.
Oh, absolutely. They don't look at him from the antics standpoint anymore. They look at him as a valuable, serious opponent. And like I said, with this performance tonight, it's almost inevitable to say that it's almost maybe 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot.
Yeah, he showed some stuff tonight, Steve, that I haven't seen in the last few fights of his that you and I have seen together. Good body work. I thought he did that better than he has in the past, and I thought he showed a pretty stiff jab when he chooses to use it.
Yeah. I would love to have seen a little bit more of the jab. Definitely as a heavyweight of this size, if you can use the jab and move like that, it's always a great asset. But, great performance, spectacular outcome.
And again, the weight I know is something of an issue, in 298, higher I'm sure than even he wants to be. Although, as we said, he's a very good athlete, and he can carry more than you might expect. But can you imagine this guy at 265, 260?
I don't know if he'd still be Big Baby.
That's true. That's true. That's true. But, he'd be quicker. He'd be very impressive. Very impressive. And Jarrell Washington just passed the first round, just had very little to offer.
Yeah, I thought Washington might give Big Baby trouble because of his style. I was right, but only for 3 minutes.
Right.
After that, it was all Big Baby.
I agree with you. I thought it was really going to be competitive, and I thought this was going to be his biggest test. And even though it was his biggest test, he passed with flying colors.
Yeah.
So, Jarrell Miller is the winner. Big Baby remains undefeated. An impressive performance. Before we get out of Dodge, I want to get a prediction from Adrien Broner, Mikey Garcia. Danny, how you see in that fight?
You know, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to pick Adrien Broner. And I say that because I think he understands the magnitude of this fight and the perception of it all. I think seeing him come in at the weight that he did, seeing the camp, the build-up to it, I think he's at his most focused, and I'm hoping to see a strong, big, solid, athletic Adrien Broner inside there tonight.
Steve?
Well, I won't make a prediction because I score the fight, so I never predict. But I do think it'll go the distance, and I have a feeling it's going to be a fairly close fight.
All right, I think it'll be a close fight, too. I'm going to go the other way, though, just for the heck of it. I like Mikey Garcia. In fact, it wouldn't shock me if he stops him, and I know nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to remember what I said, so I think he might stop him.
Barry, before you continue, I just want to read the scores here. They're shocking to me. One of the judges had this fight even, 76-76. The other one, 79-72 for Miller and 77-75 for Miller. At the time of the stoppage, this was actually a fairly close fight, not the way we saw it.
That is shocking.
That's very shocking.
That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Well, the main event still to come. 2-fight card coming your way on Showtime, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. Adrien Broner, Mikey Garcia, the headliner, Jermall Charlo and Jorge Sebastian Palin in the co-main event. All you have to do is go to Showtime.com. If you are not already a Showtime subscriber, take advantage of our free trial offer. That's a wrap for us on this streaming version of Showtime Boxing. For Steve Farhood and Danny Jacobs, I'm Barry Tompkins. Now go on, go to Showtime.com. Get out of here.
That was great.
What do you do, Ray?
I work for people like you.
What do you do for people like me?
I'm the guy you call when things go wrong.
When someone brings you into their problem, you're discreet. Whatever the fee is, I'll pay it.
The things people in this town demand. Unbelievable.
My father knows a lot of powerful people, and he can be dangerous when someone doesn't give him what he wants.
You want to tell me what happened? Your brother and your father were hospitalized. Your 19-year-old daughter called the police. You gonna answer my question?
What'd you do?
Ray's not here. It's not Ray that I'm looking for.
You know, I ran a check on you.
Mari knows I was in prison. That's history.
But I bet you didn't tell her about this.
Happy anniversary, baby. He attacked me, Ray. Can you help me?
She's just a kid.
When you look at her, is she just a kid?
Natalie James walking off the set of a $3 billion franchise? That's a fucking problem.
We gotta talk.
Thing you love the most, then let it kill you.
I'll take care of it.